Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to call the February Steering Legislative and Governmental Committee meeting to order. Our first item of business, we need to approve the minutes from our last meeting. I'll call on Vice Chairman Gooch.
I've read the minutes and I move for approval, Mr. Chair.
Motion approved. We have a second.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Next, Commissioners, we need to fill a vacancy on the Industrial Development Board and Health Education and Facilities Board to fill the unexpired term of Mr. John C. Jones, Jr. to expire August 2013. Commissioners, I believe we received 4 applicants, Mr. Jones, also Mr. McElroy, Larry McElroy, and Judge Joseph Daniels, and Dr. Nate Schott. As we typically do, we'll allow the applicants, if they're in the audience, to just address the committee and share any thoughts with us. And I believe we'll start with Mr. Jones.
From here.
Sure. You can do whatever. You can just stand up there. It's just fine.
Right. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. My name is Bill Jones. I appreciate again the opportunity to be here and speak to you about my qualifications for the Industrial Development Board. I think in my application I've listed my educational background, work experience, as well as the civic, community, and charitable efforts I've been involved with over the last 25 years or so. I'd like to also say that Mr. McElroy and Judge Daniels, Dr. Schott are all fine gentlemen, and I hope they would say the same about me. I think what I would like to point out is I believe that I have a level of experience and expertise in economic development that distinguishes my application from the others. I've listed on my application several economic development efforts I've been involved with, but I'd really like to take just 1 second to point out one of the ones I'm most proud of and one I think demonstrates my abilities. The Embassy Suites Hotel and Conference Center is a project I'm most proud of. I was one of a small number of folks who got in one of those little bitty airplanes and left out of Smyrna and flew to Springfield, Missouri to meet with the developer, Mr. Hammonds. It was quite an experience meeting with him. I was also one of 3 individuals when that deal got in the ditch, frankly, and didn't look like it was going to be able to be pulled off, who went to the Smyrna airport, met with Mr. Hammonds, got in one of those conference rooms down there and stayed there until we got a deal worked out. After we got that deal worked out, it was determined that deal would need to be approved by the voters in form of a referendum. And frankly, nobody I talked to really thought winning that type of referendum election would be something that would be easily done. I volunteered to take on that task to see if we could get it passed, and it did get passed. It got passed with over 62% approval of the voters. Obviously, all of y'all have run campaigns, and I'm sure y'all can appreciate the effort and time that goes into any electoral situation, much less a referendum, and what was required to get a 62% approval rating. That led to Mr. Hammonds investing over $80 million in our community. That $80 million not only produced a facility that was desperately needed and that's widely used, but also produced 150 full-time jobs for our citizens. And all those are great things, but as county commissioners, I'm sure y'all are interested in the finances. And last year, that facility paid $715,000 in property taxes that were available for the city and the county to use. So again, I'm very proud of that effort and what it did. I wish I had time to talk to you about the Amazon deal, about the work that's involved with there. I can assure you that deal was touch and go till the very end, and that the work of Destination Rutherford and the Chamber of Commerce played a significant role in seeing that we were ultimately successful in getting that facility here, which obviously many other communities wanted and vied heavily for. So again, in closing, I ask that you look at and consider my experiences and what I have done in the economic development world. I believe I'm the only applicant who lists any specific economic development experience on their application. I also believe I'm the only applicant who can point to specific successful economic development projects that they played an active role in. Again, I believe this makes me the best qualified of your candidates for the position on the IDB board, and I ask that if you believe that I'm the best qualified, that I receive your vote. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak, and also thanks for the service y'all give our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Any questions for Mr. Jones? Yes, sir.
I had one. What does this do to you on any of the other boards that you are on? If you were put on the IDB, would this be a conflict or anything? Because let me tell you, you are on some boards here that have really led the way in Rutherford County's growth, and no doubt, I mean, you've got the resume to show that you'd be a great applicant. We have 4 great applicants to be on IDB, and it's tough to pick one. You know, it's like, hey, we want all 4 of you, you know, on there. So does this do anything?
I can't imagine that my being on the board at the hospital or at the Jones College of Business or the Destination Rutherford effort. I mean, I can't see where any of those would conflict with the IDB job. No, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else?
Thank you very much.
Mr. Jones. Mr. McElroy is out of town. He, I know, sent me a letter. I don't know if you all got a copy of that. I passed it around. It's in Washington. Next, Judge Daniel.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you for letting me phone you and introduce myself to you when I decided to apply, and you're very courteous to take that call in your personal time. And for those who I didn't reach, I sent a letter to you to sort of introduce me and myself and my background, a little bit about my educational background and my service. My service in the judicial forum pretty well speaks for itself. I have served in public service here in Rutherford County for 24 years as a trial judge, 3 years statewide as a senior judge, and then I spent 3 years as disciplinary counsel statewide dealing with ethical violations of judges. So I have a track record of service, and I'm retired, and I enjoy public service, and I like to be involved in working for citizens of this community. And in that regard, I decided to apply for this position on the board. I have a great deal of respect for the chair, Mr. Baker, and the work that has been done and the foresight that leaders of this community have had over many years. And I would hope to be able to continue that type of distinction in this type of board. Here's some of the things that I think are important to consider in my application. First, I would hope that my service has been open and subject to scrutiny, public scrutiny, for many years, and it speaks for itself as to my integrity for doing the work of the people. And to doing that with fidelity and with the objective of serving those people and not myself or any special interest groups. But in addition to that, I come to this particular presentation or board with no public agenda, no agenda to achieve. I think that the board is wise to look and try to attract industry that's diversified, that gives a broad range of job opportunities for the citizens of the community. And I think it's important to use the discretion and power of the board in looking at the incentives that must be given and the benefits that are being received by the community and weighing those carefully before making decisions and making the taxpayer and the bonding credibility of Rutherford County at risk to do those types of activities. And I think I bring to that particular setting a degree of maturity and experience to make tough decisions after careful examination of facts. And I would enjoy participating if it's the will of the body. But you do have fine applicants, and I think the community will be in good hands however you choose. But I appreciate your consideration. Thank you.
Questions for Judge Daniel? Thank you, Judge Daniel. And Dr. Schott.
Thank you. My name is Nate Schott, and I'm over in Commission District 13. And I agree with Mr. Jones and Judge Daniel about the applicants, and I think the quality of who is applying for this board. I don't think you're going to go wrong with any of us. But I would like to say, as a small business owner, a dentist who's practiced here, also as an entrepreneur who's been involved in starting many businesses here, that Rutherford County has been a wonderful place for me, and that's how I want to be able to give back and also attract business. Most recently, I have been involved as a principal owner, shareholder, in bringing our latest hospital to Rutherford County, Trust Point, which is over on Thompson Lane. That's going to end up, when it's finished, it's about a $22 million project. I'm part owner of that. About 200 to 250 jobs will be brought into Rutherford County, which is, I think, something very good. And as far as economic development goes, I think that's something that's very good for our county, something that's needed. The other thing that I would like you to consider about me being on this board is the diverse side of it. I think you've got not just great applicants, but you've also got great board members there, but somebody that might be represented from the healthcare community, which would be able to look out. We have a large part of our economy is on healthcare, and I hope that we can draw more in and bring more there to do that. I also think that we look at Rutherford County, and many times here we will forget that it's more than Murfreesboro. And we've got a north end of the county as well that's got a lot of stuff happening there, a lot of great things going on. And I know that Mr. Jones has been involved with those types of businesses coming here. And I think it's a wonderful thing to do. But as our county grows, we've got to look to that. And as somebody being on that board, I really enjoy business. I like being involved with it and attracting business because I love Rutherford County. Bringing up a family here, friends and family that's from here means a lot to me. So I hope you consider me. And again, though, I appreciate being involved with these great other candidates because a fine group of people. Thank you.
Any questions for Dr. Schott? Thank you, Dr. Schott.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before we get involved in debate and discussion and a motion, I'd like to make one. And Commissioner Farley is not here tonight through no fault of his own, and Mr. McElroy is not here tonight through no fault of his own. I don't recall in the 8 or 9 years I've been keeping up with this committee, and the 3 years I've been honored to serve on it, that we have had 4 applicants of this quality. These are I'm speaking for myself at least, the very type of people that we would like to see involved in some way in our county government, board, commission, elected office or otherwise. And with that in mind, I'll make a motion to this effect rather than just suggest we discuss it. I'll make a motion that we send this to the county commission a week from Thursday, which is hardly much time at all, really, only a week and 3 days, and without a recommendation. And if any of these gentlemen wish to be nominated from the floor, and I personally hope that all 4 of them would be, but I don't know that, that we let the county commission decide as a 21-member body. This is extremely, all of them are important. We all know that. Every position is important. But this is particularly an important appointment for our county and that the IDB board. So I make that motion.
A motion on the floor. Do we have a second? Second. Say the not hearing motion fails for lack of a second.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
It's a good suggestion, Commissioner, and I applaud you for doing it. I couldn't second it strictly because this committee would not be doing their job, I think, if we send it to the full commission without a recommendation.
Understood.
One very good point that you mentioned, all of them were very good points, but we've got 4 candidates here that are extremely qualified and overqualified, so to speak, even some, that it's hard to make a decision, but we've got to make a decision. And so we need to send that decision to the full commission. That doesn't say who, there's going to be 3 that's not going to be, sent to the full commission. So it could very well be another commissioner or something, or even on this board right here, this committee could bring another person up that didn't make it out of this steering committee process. But we've got a job at task here, and we have to do that. And before I make that motion, I do want to commend Johnny Jones for doing a fantastic job for a number of years on the IDB, and really helped this community as well as all the other members on IDB for a number of years. So he did a great job, and I hate that he had to resign, but he did, and we have a position to fill. So with that, I'm going to make a motion that we nominate all four, and then we vote on one.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'd like to amend the motion if I could, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to amend the motion that we vote on the three gentlemen that applied and got their applications in before the deadline.
Okay, I think they
I
all.
wasn't aware of no deadline on this.
I didn't either.
Commissioners, I'll reference you to the copy of the application that you have before you in the paper or on your iPad there. There is a comment in parentheses on the top part of the application that says applications must be received 1 week prior to steering meeting. Presence of steering committee is strongly requested when appointment is considered. I believe that's the deadline Commissioner Jordan is referencing. And I'll say this in response to that is on there. However, I'm not aware of any official rule that is part of our commissioner rules and handbook that states a deadline. I would also say that that you all are as well aware, for those of you who have been here longer than I have, that we have taken applications past that 1 week deadline that's written on the application. If I'm not mistaken, I think maybe even last month we did that. I'm not positive. So yes, there is a statement written on there as a deadline. However, I know that previous practice has proven that we have taken those past that deadline.
I don't believe we had any competition for the position last month. Now, I don't recall us, not saying we didn't, I don't recall us not honoring the deadline when we had competition for it, but that may be mistaken.
No. Well, I've been on steering now about 10 years. I know on a beer board applicant that we took one right at the day of the meeting, and there was competition then, so.
I wouldn't argue that point. I would argue the point that if we have a policy, however informal it may be, the fact that we may have violated it before is really not a very good argument that we need to violate it again. But there may be no violation. So I'm in agreement with that, and I think it's pretty clear, I believe, that this is a loose end that needs to be addressed at some point. Now, maybe not this minute, but perhaps so. It is, well, I assume my amendment failed.
Do we have a second for the amendment? Do we need a second?
We do not have a second.
We need a second for the amendment. Amendment fails for lack of a second.
Okay, before we take a vote, I have a question. We have 6 members here. How many votes are we going to take? We're looking for 4 votes for one person. Is that correct? Or yes, it'll have to be 4.
Well, I
4 of
would
these
assume it
6.
depends on,
Right.
I mean,
Say, yeah, majority.
or 3 and 2 and 1.
Yeah,
Could be a
that's
possibility.
true.
All right. That was my question. So
Yeah. The majority of the votes, whether it be it could be
Right. It could be 3 to.
it could be 3, 2, 1, or 2.
Yeah.
Yeah, it could be all.
Anything that adds up to a total of 6 would be
I'm
my
trying-
guess.
Well, I'm trying to do the scenarios. There could be a lot of different scenarios, I guess.
well, I'm just asking the chair.
It could be 2, 2,
Fast.
1. Well, I don't know. Anyway, Then if it come into a tie, then you'd have to break a tie with the majority.
Well, I think we need to decide this before, how many times we're gonna vote. If we're gonna vote one time and no one has, and you're saying a majority is 3, 3 is not a majority of 6, but it is a majority of the votes if they're split.
Right.
3-2-1 or 3-1-1-1. I understand. Or suppose it's 2-2-2. Do we vote again? Who do we drop off? You see my point? You see why I'm asking the question?
Mhm.
2, 2, and 2, you would vote on those 3 to break the tie with those 3. And then if you had a tie again, you'd.
But everybody already voted
That's
for
already
it.
voted for those. You could run this scenario all night, I guess. I think you just need to.
It's
we-
like a
we've got
jury.
approved for-
We're gonna keep voting until we.
We have approved for
Reach a consensus. I
all
guess.
4 is up, right? And we've approved that
Yes.
to vote on?
Yes.
Okay, so now we're just ready to vote whenever. Okay.
Okay, so do I have an answer to my question?
I believe 3 votes.
3 is a majority.
Right.
All right. And we're gonna keep voting if it would say 2-2-2 or.
Well, I think if we're speaking hypotheticals now.
Yes, we are.
If it is 2-2-2 or 3-3, or 1-1-1-1 and pass, you know, I guess we could take a motion after that as to what to do. We may want at that time to send. If we can't make a decision at this committee, we could possibly send it to the full commission for all 4, or for the 2 that are 3-3, or the 3 that are 2-2-2. That would be action that this committee would have to take on how to proceed after that.
Well, it may be a moot point. I'm aware of that, but I think we ought to get that decided
Uh,
before we vote the first time.
That's why you were so wise.
I don't know about being wise, but
But
careful.
I do. No, that's a very, very good point.
Mr. Chairman, if this would clear up anything, we've got a motion on the floor, but I would make an amendment to that motion. If, in case of a tie, those applicants that are in a tie situation, we send those to the full commission that are tied. We won't re-vote. We would send the tie people, whether it be 2 people with 3-3 or 3 people with 2-2-2, however it comes out as a tie, without a majority vote, we would send those. Now, if you have a tie and a majority vote on one, then that's your person that we're sending to full commission. Is
So-
that clear?
So we're gonna vote once.
Yes.
That's an amendment. Do we have a second for that
I'll
amendment?
second that.
Amendment is second. All those in
I see
favor?
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Any discussion about the amendment?
Well, I just wanna make sure that we understand each
Yeah.
other and that the audience understands. We're gonna vote one time.
once.
And we're either gonna have a, quote, winner, or we're gonna have a tie. But
There's 4 winners here. We're just.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that, but there's only gonna be one here in just about 2 minutes, so. Okay, thank you. I appreciate the patience of the committee, and Becky in particular, who's trying to take everything down.
Did you get all that? We had a motion or an amendment and a second. Did we vote on that amendment?
I don't think
All
we
in
did.
favor of the amendment, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Amendment passes. Now we're voting on the motion to approve all 4, vote on 1, and if we end in a tie, to send on to the full commission. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. We're just making sure.
Okay.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right, Ms. Becky, please call the roll.
Commissioner Black,
Dr. Schott.
Commissioner Gooch,
Dr. Schott.
Commissioner Jordan,
Mr. Jones,
Commissioner Sandlin,
Dr. Schott.
Commissioner Stevens,
Dr. Schott.
Commissioner Cogan,
Dr. Schott.
Dr. Gunn.
I will also address Mr. McElroy even in his absence, but all 4 of you, we immensely appreciate your applications and your willingness to serve and all the service that you have done and hopefully will continue to do for our community. We appreciate you all being here. And Dr. Schott, at our February commission meeting, which is the 16th, I believe, if you can be there, where you'll be voted on by the full commission for your appointment. Very much. Next on the agenda is a consortium agreement by and between the chief elected officials of Davidson, Rutherford, Wilson, and Trousdale counties regarding workforce development. Mr. Mayor, would you like to come up and talk about that? I have a copy of it. That's about it.
Okay, this is the first time that this has been requested since I have been here, but I think the commission has done this 2 times before, I believe, and some of you may have remembered it, but it has to do with workforce development and training, and there is an act of 1998 that requires the governor to designate a local workforce investment area for job training and other services. So this again, since it's time to renew this, it's a 5-year term, and there are certain people in these 4 counties that are appointed to this little board, and they sort of advise the governor and whoever, I don't know who all else, quite truthfully, but they do work with our technology center quite a bit on those training programs and stuff, and they're sort of an advisory board in that respect. We don't pay anything, it doesn't cost us anything, it's just something that's required by law, actually. And I only know one person that actually serves on this board, and that's Mr. Bruce Duncan, and he works with MHC. He's been on the board for a number of years, but beyond that, I don't know who's on the board, quite honestly, all right? It does say that we have to appoint the members of the board, so and it's based on a percentage of the population, so I suppose we'll have to reappoint the member that represents Rutherford County, or members. So I've sort of told you about as much as I know about it. That's not enough, I'm sure, but it's, I know that Bruce has been an active participant on that board, and he believes that it's a good thing that we're doing to try to encourage and promote our workforce development, their training, etc. There's no harm here, so. And it's a 5-year term that this agreement would be in effect.
And we've done it before in the past years.
You've done it twice already. This will be the 3rd go round.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve.
Motion approved. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion on the motion? All's in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Next, we have a social media policy. Mr. Robertson and Ms. Stevenson, if you all like to join us. I believe, Commissioners, we got this a month or 2 ago. Bringing it back to us.
Okay, sure. Well, a couple months back, you all received a draft that Ms. Stevenson and I had worked on that was a social media and guidelines and acknowledgement form. And we have since refined that even a bit further due to things even that have occurred since then. And there was some part of us that even considered making a change this afternoon. So I think this will need to continue to be an evolutionary document that will receive revision probably every time the personnel handbook is revised. From an IT director's standpoint, it's a very good thing to think that there could be policy related to technology that is incorporated into the personnel handbook. I was at a CIO conference last week with other CIOs across the state of Tennessee and had a lot of sentiment that IT directors were kind of hanging out here on their own, trying to regulate and or technically provision social media policy and other internet use policies and so forth, and that is a struggle for them to not have a coordinated effort with the chief executive officer, in this case the mayor, and the HR department. So this truly is a collaborative effort in that respect, even to the point we met with a sister agency of sorts, Community Care of Rutherford County, and met with legal staff who had reviewed their proposed social media policy, and they revised theirs somewhat based on some of the things that Ms. Stevenson had incorporated into ours, and vice versa. So again, we come here before you tonight approaching this primarily from the standpoint of an employee's good and appropriate use and defining that a bit of social media, and not so much from a governance policy-making standpoint in terms of who should regulate legitimate Facebook and or other social media policies. This is more from the employee standpoint. Ms. Stevenson?
The other thing is we just wanted to make sure that there were some guidelines. There's so much technology out there now, and it, Brian stated, as technology evolves, so will this policy. It'll have to, because as new things are introduced, we'll have to amend it to make sure, because if you don't have, we wanted to be proactive instead of reactive and wait for something to happen, so we wanted to make sure that we have put some thought into it. We did an extensive amount of research looking at other organizations' policies. Some legal sites, also had the county attorney's office, after we got through, to go through it and make sure that we hadn't misstated or misused may or will or shall or those type things. So while it's broad, it also has some pretty definite guidelines that we don't want people to step over those boundaries, so we made sure that we made that clear. And I think
So our handbook covers most of the employee type computer texting, Twittering, whatever. But this right here goes into detail of that, correct? Or is this more of a fine line of the handbook, employee handbook?
what we currently have is Brian had already set up and executed an internet and user agreement for technology.
Mhm.
So any new employee
Years ago.
years
even
ago.
Before HR.
Right.
Yeah, pre all of us.
Well, now, HR's not that old now.
No, but he said pre.
Yeah.
So he had already set that up so that any new employee that came in that would be utilizing the county's internet, computer equipment, technology, I mean cell phone, had pagers in there. We have removed that because I don't think we have any pagers anymore. But so with that, this is just really building on that a little bit more, and this is more formalized
Plus,
to
we have to
encompass
have it
everything.
in place.
We need to have this
Yeah.
in place, and I mean.
So the
this-
corrections y'all did even today, are they in here, or we need to look at those, or it's gonna be an ongoing, type thing?
We did not make any corrections today.
Oh, okay.
We got a last minute, from a legal site, another organization that had done it, and I belong to an HR laws website. And as new laws are instituted throughout the federal government or state governments, I get updates. And with the things that they had updated in that, we had already touched on them, and it's almost like we didn't want to put too much emphasis on one area. It was more based along the lines of not utilizing social media as your background check, so to speak. And so we had already touched on that a little bit, and we really are not going to be using social media as a part of our background check policy. So,
Like that one thing in the top of page 4 right here, elected officials and directors may allow or disallow employees' participation in non-county social media activities as part of the job duties in accordance with this policy, blah, blah, blah. We're not changing anything besides what you have in this policy right here. Is that what that's referring to, or is it just?
well, it's also referring to when we do institute this into the total county handbook. As Brian mentioned, when we do updates to the total handbook, at that time, you could say, we're not gonna do this, or we are gonna do this, and whatever the commission, whatever steering committee approves and then moves forward is what we would do. So that's why we put that in there, that it was at your discretion.
Okay, gotcha.
How does this address, or does it, or do we need to, a social media site that is set up, and whether or not it is by, let's just say, an elected official, and how it, it may look like it's an official, like if it's one that I set up, a Facebook account or a Twitter feed or whatever, and County Commission 15. And I'm posting things out there. There could be, where's the line between my personal social media site and me as a representative of the county?
This,
Or let's say you did it for, well, may not be a good example. Does that make sense? And what I'm posting on there, and how does it represent the county as a whole?
and Sonia, I'll just, draw your attention to page 3, next last paragraph. But really, Commissioner, this is not, again, this is more employee-centric. This does not attempt to define what is or is not an officially adopted website of the county government. It does, however, allude in many respects throughout the document to the fact that an employee who clearly inappropriately represents themselves as being an official, acting in an official capacity, would certainly be in violation of this from a personnel standpoint.
Okay.
Sonia, is that?
That's correct.
Okay.
By them posting, whether or not, clearly if they're on duty, on county equipment, on a county site, and making statements, they're an employee. However, if they're off duty, at home, using their equipment, but they make comments that are either slanderous, incorrect, causes libel, or anything that's defamatory that would be against the county's policies and practices, we've left, there is room in here for us to counsel that employee. When you speak on, as far as a commissioner or constitutional officer, something along that lines, that's a whole nother, a whole nother ballgame, which really Brian nor I would have any say or control over that whatsoever.
Okay.
So this would indeed give us some teeth to counsel, as you say, that employee, and say, you very clearly were told that you would indeed be representing the county acting in the following manner, and so very clearly you're in a violation of the personnel handbook, instead of a situation where they could say, well, I was never told that I couldn't go on a website and do the following thing. They can't say they weren't told in that respect.
And part of the policy also says that when you're going to make a comment regarding Rutherford County government, its policies, practices, your work environment, who you work with, that you, it is their employee's responsibility to disclose that they're not making these comments on behalf of Rutherford County government, that they are in a personal opinion in nature only. So it does give the employee some responsibility that if you're going to talk about your employer, whether you're on or off duty, that you still have a responsibility to that employer.
I think this is something that we need to have. This is the first time I've seen the second draft of this today, and I had a few questions. It talks about employees, volunteers, and contractors, but then all throughout the document it just says employees may not publicly discuss employees, and so forth. What about the contractors and the volunteers? And how Voltaire says, if you wish to converse with me, define your terms. I think that we need to spell out in here what an employee is, what's a volunteer, what's a contractor. One of my questions from the first draft was, what is official conduct, or when I saw that you had put something in there on the bottom of page 3 about some things that would show that you're using your official capacity for that. But I don't know, some First Amendment bells are going off in my head, and I think I would be okay with voting to send it to the full commission, but between now and then I'd like to look over it some more and maybe offer some amendments or some suggestions at the full commission meeting. One thing that particularly caught my attention was that moderation, if there's a site and there's content that's going to be published on there, that it's going to be monitored, and some speech will be selected, can go on there, and some won't. And I think that's where you get into the First Amendment violations. But without reading the cases and all that, I'm just not up on that enough to give a informed opinion, but I would like to look at that some more. I do think this is something that we need to do though, so I'd be willing to send it to the full commission, and between now and then just review it some more and see if I can satisfy myself with my own concerns.
That would be helpful.
It would be helpful. And the moderation was more as we wanted to encourage people to think before they type. And, you know, sometimes when you get into the emotion of something, you may say something, and once it's out there, it's gone. That's why we say once you get sent, it's gone for, you know, it's already out there. So that's part of where the moderation came in, is we wanted people to be thoughtful in their words and their choices before they did that. But absolutely, we would encourage and invite comments and
So then
suggestions.
does the handbook then in turn cover the disciplinary action? I mean, like it's a warning at first for being on the computer, maybe checking your emails or doing whatever, and then next time you're terminated, or you're terminated first thing. I mean, because I don't know, it was 60 Minutes, 2020, whatever it was the night, or not long ago, you know, how many people are going online now during their work time, checking their emails, or doing emails, or playing solitaire, or whatever, you know. What is in relation to this, what is that?
Depends on the act. I mean, if it's already something that is a clear violation, for example, just to throw something out there, for example, if it was a website that was created, a Facebook, we'll just say Facebook because that's easy. Say it was a Facebook account that a department created. One, they should be going through our technology department to make sure that that was an agreed project. But based on the items that the employee is posting on that Facebook account, say an employee posted something of nudity or of something that was defaming and derogatory and prejudiced in some way. You know, it really depends on what the act is to whether or not you would say that it was if it was something that was an innocent thing and you say, oh, I could see how that happened, you know, yes, some counseling would be on it about the proper uses and maybe you didn't understand. But if something is way out there and it is clearly flagrant misconduct, that would be a whole different issue. So.
And that has indeed occurred even prior to this policy, where something transpired that was so clearly inappropriate that the department head was able to terminate that employee, but based on general principle, this is clearly wrong. So this helps further identify what is indeed wrong.
And what they were saying in the workplace, I mean, you had 20 and 30-year employees that were just, maybe they were just checking their own email. It's something you can't do on company time. I mean, you're working for the company, you can't do that. Now, if it's on their lunch break or something, yeah, whatever, and it's their device. I don't even know even if it's a county computer and you're checking your email or something, if that's tolerable, you know, during your lunchtime or break time. I'm just, this is well needed. So, I mean, you know, with our technology today and where we're headed and where we're going, I mean, you know, we got that.
Most of that, in my experience, outside of an HR type of answer to that question, has really gotten back to the department head or supervisor monitoring the performance of those employees and occasionally asking that we check tabs on use of the internet and such, which certainly we can do, but for the most part we have not deemed ourselves Big Brother and tried to allow the department heads to really still be the department head or supervisor of that employee, and it's worked reasonably well, I think.
Right, and there are, I mean, our current handbook says that an occasional use of, you know, the technology that's available to them for a reason, you know, a school calls and your child's sick. I mean, you're using the phone, that's technology use, but, you know, so you've got to have some leeway on that. It's abuse of use. That's the problem.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just one comment. I mean, there've been a number of good issues raised here, and we've taken a substantial, good amount of time to work through this. And I really don't think there's any real reason for us to rush this process. I really would prefer that you let Mr. Stevens and Sonia and Brian and others of you have some one-on-one time with some of this to really flesh out some of this. I mean, particularly with, if we're talking about some of the First Amendment rights and things that Mr. Stevens mentioned, I think it would be, I believe, a bit more appropriate to take another month on this and then maybe suggest you go forward.
So I move that we defer this for one more month.
Okay. Motion, we have a second.
I'll second the motion.
Motion and second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all very much for the work that y'all put into this. It's very good. Also, Mr. Robertson's still up here. He told me before the meeting that they're gonna, IT's gonna stick around, Dak and Brian, to kind of help us if we want some coaching on the iPads and such.
It's worked very good tonight, though. Thank you. Yeah.
I just gotta get back to the agenda. Next, we have a presentation from Commissioner Allen on the road board and school board districts.
I have a couple of handouts for you all. Start to pass.
Always the same, Commissioner Allen.
They're all the matches. It's just the current road and school board map.
Me too.
That's fine. Who's on first? I wanted to clearly articulate to you what I wanted us to accomplish tonight. So I've laid out 2 points. First is the problem, and the second is what my request is on behalf of the constituents of Laverne. If you look at the map that's in the back, this is our current road and school board map. The little hash marks, the little dotted lines, show you where the municipalities are, how the municipalities are laid out. And so it's easy for you to see in the north end of the county where Laverne their municipality is spread across 3 different school zones and road zones. And you really kind of had to work hard to do that because each road and school board zone represents 3 commission districts. So of the 3 school board representatives that they currently have, those 3 representatives represent 9 commission districts, which is almost 50% of the county. So when they say that they feel like they want a more concentrated voice, they want to be heard, that's an example. If you've got 3 representatives that are taking care of not quite, but almost half of the county, then you can see how they would feel like their voice has been watered down. So these are the concerns as they've been conveyed to me. The current map, the current problem, it fails to meet the basic apportionment principles of compactness, contiguity, respect for political boundaries, which is the city limits, and shared communities of interest. Laverne is divided into the 3 zones, as I showed you. That alone is a result of a lack of respect for their political boundaries. Road and school board number 4, zone number 4, which is really the issue that I think began this whole conversation initially. If you look at it, it has created an island. The shaded green areas, that's Wayne Blair's school board district. One of the basic redistricting principles is that you never want to have an island. You want your areas to all touch. We were successful in achieving that with the commission districts. We were not successful in achieving that with the road and school board districts. And also, this is just a personal note of mine. No one has driven this point home, but I just still think it's worth mentioning, so I continue to bring it up. And that is, there's a great disparity between the demographics at the Laverne schools and the demographics at an Eagleville school. And so when you talk about shared communities of interest, the needs of those families and those populations are vastly different. And I think that needs to be taken into consideration when you're looking at how does their representation need to be aligned. And so then this is my request, because this was Commissioner Jordan, Commissioner Sandlin, different ones were very involved in the redistricting conversation. And so, I welcome your input here to help lay this out. There was a lot of conversation about the fact that everybody felt rushed. They felt like we were rushing the process. We were trying to do, too much too fast and trying to tackle the road and school board issue because it came up so late in the game. We were trying to get everything into the state so we could get everything approved by the first of the year. And we were reminded repeatedly that there was no rush on the road and school board, that we could readdress this at any point in time, because we are not changing, and I am not asking you to change current county commission districts. Those are set, those are intact for the next 10 years. Our main barrier to doing anything about the road and school board issue was the fact that when we looked at the county commission districts, we had made a decision that we wanted to respect incumbency. And because we respected the incumbency of the county commissioners, we felt like it sort of tied our hands, and then we had to respect the incumbency of the road and school board members. And so that's really what precipitated any lack of change in looking at the map and trying to make any real difference to it. Because our ultimate goal was to do one man, one vote. We achieved that. We were proud of that. And so from that standpoint, the committee did their job. So the request going forward then is that we establish a new committee to just simply study what would it look like. Is there a better way to reapportion the representation so that we can achieve the goals, as generally outlined for apportionment, which would be compactness, contiguity, respect for political boundaries, and shared communities of interest. So that's my request to you, is that you do establish such a committee to study it. And then I have made a recommendation of what I think the committee would look like. And this is just purely what I think from having served on the committee last time, where I felt like we kind of missed the mark. We missed the mark because we did not have a road and school board member on the committee, and I feel like we should have had that. I don't think the committee for this job needs to be, I don't want it to be a political one, and so I want to keep the number of elected officials to a minimum. So my suggestion is that we begin with at least one member of the road board, school board, county commission for a total of 3 elected officials. We ask the mayors of Laverne, Eagleville, Smyrna, and Murfreesboro to recommend 1 citizen, which would be a non-office holder from their respective communities, to serve on the committee for a total of 4 municipal citizens. And then so that the unincorporated areas don't feel left out, accept applications from 2 citizens who reside in the unincorporated areas of Rutherford County for a total committee makeup of 9 members. I'm afraid if you start to add too many more folks than that, it's hard to get anything done with, committees that are too large. I feel like a representative from the county OIT staff for GIS purposes and a representative from the county's attorney's office should also be involved. They were immensely helpful to us and just invaluable to us, and so they need to be available to this group as well. The committee should be appointed as soon as possible, allowing for any sufficient legal notices. The committee will elect their own chairman, who will give monthly progress reports to the full commission until such a time when a recommendation is made by this committee. And the committee will make a recommendation to the full commission within 6 months of the date of their first meeting. So this way it doesn't drag out forever, but they have a sort of a defined timeline. They can set their own meeting schedule, but the last thing we want to do is set up a committee and then have them sit there and stall out and not do anything. What do you think?
Well, let me comment, since I was on the redistricting committee, and I'd be interested in what anybody's got to say, but Sam, of course, was our chairman, and might I say publicly, he did a sensational, I thought, job of what we were trying to get done.
No, I'm not going to be on this committee.
I know.
Nice try.
The island that you referred to, just want to mention just one thing, is, and you were not indicating otherwise, the island's not illegal.
No.
Well, we need to make sure that the public understands that.
That's right. It
But-
would be had it been a commission district, but it
Agreed.
is not with the school.
That's
district.
right. But, not saying it shouldn't be fixed, it troubles me. I don't like it, but at any rate, it's not illegal. And I don't know exactly how to say this, word this properly, because Commissioner Allen or myself, Commissioner, any of the people on the committee, we can't promise anything, because first of all, we just one vote. And some of those people in there, of course, did not serve on any elected office. They couldn't promise a thing. But we did say, and I think we indicated, that's a good word, we indicated that we would make some effort at some future time, pretty soon, at least I said pretty soon, I know I did, that we would look at this. And I was just repeating what Commissioner Allen repeated to Health and Ed the other night. Why not now? Why not, within the next 2 or 3 months? And I'm not sure how I feel about any of this. Maybe y'all are not either, but I have some problems with it, with solving problems that I'm not sure is a problem. But I think we owe it to them to at least try this and see if the commission wants to do it. Okay. I appreciate your time. Thank you.
And there is one point that I did forget to mention that I think is a pretty important one. I think whatever recommendation needs to come out of the committee so that they can still allow for considering and respecting incumbency is that they need to look at a future phase-in date so that all current incumbents are allowed to serve out their term. And that, so based on the changes that I believe we recommended to the private acts to try to renumber some of the zones so that we could have uniform numbering across the board, I think 2018 may be the date, may be the phase-in date. There might be a way to get around it if they look at it closer and can figure out a way to do it. So again, you're not even talking about immediate action, but you're talking about one of those things that has to begin now to be able to be implemented at a time, so that because we'll be butting right up against the next census cycle, and so that it all starts all over again. The problem of not having enough time to get everything done. So this is kind of that moment in time where I feel like it needs to be studied. And again, all I'm asking you to do is to put together a committee to study it, to study a recommendation. I'm not even asking you to endorse the committee or what the committee's recommendation is going to be. I don't know that I'll endorse the recommendation that the committee's going to bring. But I don't think it harms any of us to listen to the citizens of Laverne and put a committee together to at least look at it, and an in-depth opportunity to look at it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion so we have the proper parliamentary procedure. I'll make a motion that we establish a committee and include 1 road board member, 1 school board member, 1 commission member, and 2 members of the unincorporated areas who will be selected by the recommended by the steering committee and sent to the full commission. And then also include a representative from each of the 4 municipalities to be appointed by the mayors of those respective cities. And so
How many is it?
that's a total of 9. That's what Commissioner Allen's recommending that we do. The question was, how do those people get appointed who aren't appointed by the mayor? So I was recommending that they come through the steering committee and be chosen or recommended for the full commission to approve those. And I also include in my motion that the committee have 6 months to do its job, that they give adequate legal notice, and that they select their chairman at their first meeting.
I'll second, just for the purposes of discussion. Well, we got 9, and we want an odd number. And we have the school board and the road board, and the county commission too, for that matter. We'll have to notify Mr. Jones and Dr. Burns. And I don't know how they handle that, whether they just ask the group and see if they have a volunteer, or if they select somebody, but I don't know if they have the authority just to say, well, you will go down there and do it. I don't know that, but I guess we let them worry about that.
I think they'll be interested.
Oh, yeah, 5 of them were there at the last meeting. 3 road board members, I think, and 5 school board members were there, so it was a majority of both bodies. But anybody that is serving here, I can tell you from personal experience, took about 5 meetings, or about the same amount of time outside the meeting as in it to prepare. and it was free. It was uncompensated work, which is fine. But these folks need to know that. As volunteer, that it's you're helping your community. That's what you're doing, which is fine.
Commissioners, I'd like to point out, I think everybody got a copy of Commissioner Schaefer's recommendations for the makeup of an ad hoc committee should we decide to go that route. I just wanted to make sure we,
And I had not seen that till
Okay.
just a moment ago when Commissioners were, and I think they're very similar.
They are
Layouts.
pretty similar. I think in yours you had, or in the motion, one county commissioner, and he had 2 county commissioners. That's one difference. The road board, school board's the same. And then as far as the representatives from the cities, Laverne, Eagleville, Smyrna, and Murfreesboro, to recommend 1 citizen. He had, Commissioner Schaefer had 1 each, citizens appointed by Murfreesboro, Smyrna, and Laverne city councils. Just want to point out those differences. And then the 1 county citizen appointed by steering committee, and then 1 citizen appointed at large by steering committee.
Well, Commissioner Stevens can defend his motion at the county commission meeting, and Commissioner Schaefer or anyone can tweak, and the 21 members can vote on it. I don't remember, but maybe Commissioner Black can help me out, because I know you spoke to this. There was a road board member and a school board member. Now help me out. In the original committee,
I think I made a motion, I'm not for sure.
I think you did too, but I can't remember.
I asked him for a road board member, and
it got voted down.
Come in and got voted down.
Yeah, I voted on the wrong side of that motion.
But,
I'm sure I did. We should have done that. So you were right.
But no,
I think, anyway.
I guess we can go back and, if we think we made a mistake, and go with Commissioner Allen's suggestion, and it's evident that she's got a lot of folks down there that's concerned about this, and I feel intrigued to support it.
Commissioner Allen, do you see that we can, sound like I'm gonna do it, that somebody can solve part of this and not, and maybe they won't be able to come to an agreement on all of it? In other words, they could perhaps do the island, for instance, but not do something in Laverne at the same time? Or is it all a package deal? I mean,
I don't know.
I don't either.
I don't know what they're going to come back with. That's why I think they need 6 months to figure it out. Because just as we began to scratch the surface, we saw it taking us in lots of different directions. I think they'll do the same thing.
Right. Okay.
Mr. Sandlin.
Well, I first want to go back and say, you did say that, and it was last year when you said that, even though it's just been a few months ago. So you're correct that we were going to come back at some time and do this. And I want to commend Commissioner Allen, too, for keeping us on task on doing that. Couple things, though, that I'm being the chairman of the committee, didn't feel like we were rushed. We just did it in 5 weeks.
No, just this part. Once this came back, because the issue of the island with Wayne Blair's district didn't even surface, I think, until late October, November, and that's the point where I'm talking about.
Well,
we felt rushed to try to do anything about that.
That was on the tail end of that, right?
Yeah.
The incumbency issue, that's not to be taken lightly. I mean, the incumbency issue was a big deal.
Right.
That's why we ask, if there's no road board members, school board members, county commissioners that are going to run next time, let us know, because it would have made the process a whole lot easier, like if none of us ran,
Right.
and we could do nice, neat little squares or circles or triangles, however it would work out for the county, and in doing that. But the incumbency, we felt like also, and you've been a member of that committee as well as others, but incumbency, not only for the county commissioners, but for the road board members and school board members, we felt like treating them just like we were treating ourselves.
Right.
That we wasn't separating, because it would, I don't think it would be right,
Right.
to do that differently. So, and we talked to Laverne and about the issues of being 3 representatives compared to 1, and I.
Probably 2. I think 2 will still be about the smallest they'll be able to get based on how the commission districts are laid out.
But they didn't want,
Yeah.
from the mayor, she didn't want 1. And from the people I talked to, that they said they wanted 1 representative. So you're saying that they may want 2.
I'm just saying, no, I'm just saying based
It
on
won't
how
work
I,
out at
yeah, I'm just
1,
saying based
yeah.
on how I saw it,
I see.
I don't think you can get to 1.
I see. I don't mind forming a committee. I'm not really, I just got this just when you passed it out. I think we do need to form a committee. If we could sleep on it a month, if it's not a dire rush, unless y'all ready to go ahead. And I mean, and the majority will rule on that. I'm not prepared really or ready to if that's the way you want to set the committee.
That was just a
That's
recommendation.
awesome, and that's fine.
And if you
But-
want to massage it, that's your prerogative. That was just an idea that I had. I was trying to make it as representative of
Yeah.
the county as possible and make it as apolitical as possible.
I think when we talked about it in committee, if we did this again, that we would keep the 11 that we had, but just add a school board and road board member in there. Because I think the cities were represented, and the county was represented, and everybody else was represented. Male, female, Republican, Democrat, everybody was represented except for school board and road board. And that we needed to fix that. We need to have school board and road board member on there. So,
Yeah, I don't remember anybody having an interest in serving on a future committee or continuing with this, just based on how the conversations went.
yeah.
I don't. And we can go back and watch the tapes, but I just
Form a committee of 1.
no. and I'm not lobbying to be on the committee. I'm just moving the conversation forward.
And I agree with you. I'll help
Yeah.
you get the committee,
Yeah.
but I don't want to be on.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Well, we currently,
if y'all are ready tonight and you got a motion on the floor,
we've got a
that's
motion,
fine.
we don't have a second. Do we have a second, or we
Yeah, I
want to withdraw them?
second.
Oh, you did second?
I did have a question here on number 3, accept applications from 2 citizens.
I meant for those applications to come to steering.
Okay.
I might not have been clear.
All right, thank you. That was my question.
Yeah.
So we could get, maybe, it was? Okay. So we're in good shape down here. I've
Your
been
s-
corrected.
Your 6-month time frame then,
Would start from their first meeting date, so
From
that
their
they
first-
have 6
okay.
months to do their work.
so you're trying to get it prepared for then the 14 election?
It will
2014?
probably be 16 or 18 at the earliest,
Yeah.
to keep everybody,
To keep the
Oh,
incumbents, to allow the incumbents to run their
fulfill the
circles
rest
out.
of the term,
Right.
and it'd be 18.
and that way, when you run at that time, the district's gonna be different.
Right, gotcha.
Mr. Chair, I guess one question I had is, if we're going to protect the incumbency by phasing it in on the 2018 election, well, 2 years after that, we're starting the process all over again.
Right.
And if we protect the incumbency and it still looks not
Messy.
right, we're gonna phase it in 2028. It just seems like to me there's a lot of voter confusion. I guess what I would think is do it once and let it be. But if we start changing it and phasing it in, it's like we're continually changing and phasing. Because I don't think that ever you can protect road board and school board incumbencies and have the perfect map.
No, I think there would be one phase in.
It'll be phased in, but then 2 years after that, we start the process all over again.
You're talking about with the census?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's just gonna, as the census changes and the
that
county changes, that's just
process,
gonna be,
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
just an
but-
ongoing process.
But I don't think
Yeah.
that the way the county's population change in certain sectors, that we'll ever have a perfect map
Oh, no.
with protecting the incumbency. So what I'm saying is that we may do it again like we did this year and start phasing in again.
Well, it could be that group at the next census may determine that they're not gonna respect incumbency, because we didn't have to, we chose to. So, we don't know what that group's gonna do 10 years from now. 8 years, I guess now.
Got a road board member wants
Mayor, did you?
First, I want to see what Ms. Shelton has written down as the motion, and then I might have a few questions. I want to be sure that motion is completely clear.
Okay. My question is, does your motion include the statement about a representative from OIT and the county attorney's office attending the meetings? Was that included?
Mhm. Yeah, we
Okay.
can include that.
Then basically, I have the motion as her suggested committee makeup, including
3.2.
in the second point at the bottom, that the chairman will be elected at the first meeting. But basically, I've got the motion as this block right here.
All of what she said there.
But including that the chairman will be elected at the first meeting.
And what is the name of this committee that's being formed?
I didn't get that.
The Allen redistricting?
No.
I guess we can just call it the.
First of all,
Yeah.
redistricting is not what this is
It's
all
not what
about.
it is.
No,
Yeah.
it's not.
Yeah, and I just said a committee to study road and school board zones, so maybe it's a study committee. I don't know what you want to call it, but
The Road School Board Study Committee.
yeah.
Road School Board Zones Study Committee.
Yeah.
And Mrs. Shelton, this is a study committee, but much of your language here, Ms. Allen, suggests that the committee will make a recommendation. Suppose they're unable to come to an agreement on a particular recommendation. Is their duty finished within 6 months or not?
I didn't list that because I don't know the answer. I struggled with it as well. I don't, again, this is my personal recommendation. I don't think it's worthwhile to have a committee that's going to sit there and do nothing. I don't think it's worthwhile to establish a committee and then not give them a time frame that they know they have to work within.
Let's suppose they cannot
Yeah.
agree that there's a practical solution, whatever that might be.
Then maybe no change is their recommendation.
Okay, that was my only point.
Yeah.
Can a recommendation be
No
that
change.
they
No
could not
change, yeah.
come to a reasoned
Right.
conclusion that there was something that they could put forward as a recommendation
I think
or
absolutely.
change?
Absolutely.
Okay, just want to be sure that we don't bind them to something that maybe they
Right.
can feel they can really accomplish.
Right.
I mean, even though they work very diligently at that.
And that's really my desire, is for them to work diligently, because my fear was that you would have a committee that might meet, you know, where I'm one of those people, I'll come meet with you every week till we get it worked out so that the information's fresh and we're moving forward. You may have, they may just determine that they want to set up a meeting schedule of once a month, or then if they stretch it out to 6 or 8 weeks, it's like, this, none of us want to continue to have this conversation into the next 24 months. We'd all like to wrap it up, I'm confident. By the looks on your faces, I'm confident we'd like to wrap it up.
Mr. Mayor, on the redistricting committee, the state insisted, and rightly so, I'm glad they did it, that we had election commissioner and registrar on that committee. Matter of fact, she was the only person that had to be there, right? She was pretty much mandated to serve.
Yes, I think it was a strong recommendation, if not
Yes,
a
sir.
mandate.
There'd be no such mandate on this committee.
No.
Okay.
I was thinking a bit about that. The election administrator will be a person that will be very helpful in doing a lot of homework on deciding whether it's 2016, 2018, and what might be the most optimum time to do that. Because she knows those cycles well, and you've got 4 members that come up every 2 and 3 that come up every 2, so that's gonna take a lot of, a bit of research and real thought.
I hesitate to put anything else
She
on
could be
her.
advisory.
She
may
is
need to be
covered up.
advisory at a minimum.
Well, with this election year going on, she's gonna be pretty busy, but I mean, they may, like you say, I hate to
ask her to do.
Ask her to do it from this committee, but I mean, that committee may wanna ask her, hey, can you come tonight, or, I mean, you know, whatever the meeting schedule will be and all that sort of stuff, cause she would be very helpful.
And we need to remember, and just kind of pin down some dates, that the 2020 census is going to take place in 2019, 2020, and that the very same committee is going to meet in the summer following that. So it'll be 2021 in the summer, in other words, 1 year, 10 years from when we just met. So
Not
that's
the
gonna,
same committee.
No,
A
not the same
committee.
committee, except you will be
A
chairman.
A committee.
I recommend you for chairman from the grave. I
Right,
recommend you.
right.
But that committee will, and they will be doing very similar things.
Right.
And
Well, just like our task was to only really look at the commission districts.
Right.
And the road and school board was sort of a byproduct of that. We didn't have the time or the focus on just road and school board. And that's where I think it'll be advantageous to have a committee whose only focus is road and school board, because we don't know what recommendations that they're gonna make. They may recommend no change through 2018, but may have a recommendation for that 2020 censusing group and say, when you get ready to redraw your district lines, consider this or that. I don't know what they're gonna say, but I'm just afraid if we don't have the time to focus just on road and school board, nothing will happen, nothing will change, and we'll be in the exact same situation we're in this time. So.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to respond to something that Commissioner Gooch was saying, and that is we're trying to fit a 40-year-old map scheme in today's commission maps, and that's our problem. The private acts, the way that they're worded, they've got shackles on what we can do. We're very limited. And if we don't do something about the school board and the road board zones in the middle of the decade, then the people in 2021, when they're drawing the new commission districts, they're going to have the exact same problems that we just had. So if we go ahead and update the school board and road board map, modify it, it's going to be much closer, much more workable for that redistricting process in 2021. Otherwise, they're going to be working with a 50-year-old map. And it's just clearly outdated if you look at it. It doesn't plan for growth. It divides up that municipality into 3 equal sections. It's got a district that's 2 islands, and they just run all over the county every which way. I think that we can get a map recommendation that is that complies with our standards. We can get one that meets the compactness rule. We can get a map that has districts that are contiguous, that respects boundaries as much as possible. We can't get a district that's just the Laverne city limits, because the commission districts aren't going to change any. So it's going to be, if they make a recommendation to put Laverne primarily into one, it would still have maybe part of another school board district or 2 that covers a little section of the city, but primarily you're going to have one member that focuses on that area. And that would solve that problem. And also, I think that we can respect communities of interest a little bit better too. So to me, our job is to simply listen to issues from our constituents, to study those issues and to try to solve them. That's all that we're asking the committee to do tonight, is to set up this study committee for the purpose of reviewing these road board and school board zones to see if we can improve them and start the phase in the middle of the decade. We're not asking anybody to change anything right now. We're just asking that we do our job, which is to study. So upon that, I would call a roll call vote, by the way.
Okay. Before we do that, Mr. Bratcher, I think, wanted to address the committee if there's no objection.
I appreciate that.
And then the mayor has.
First of all, I want to let you all know that I'm not in opposition of this. I'm in support of it. I think Ms. Allen's done a good job with this. Just a couple of things I'd like to, for you to consider. With this redistricting thing, I think the way it affects the road board and the school board is definitely different. Simply because, like the Laverne district that I think we've been talking about, I represent that district. And really, our roles as far as road board and school board is a lot different. I know, like the schools are county schools, and so they need some representation as far as, I guess, dealing with their municipality council and mayor, where it's a little different from the road board perspective, because I represent that area, but in those municipalities, they do their own paving, their own signage and everything, just like the city of Murfreesboro and Smyrna. So I think that's where it's kind of different from the road board perspective. So like I say, I am not in opposition of this. I think we definitely need to address it, but I think only out of what she's recommended, only other thing I personally would recommend is where they have the recommendation of someone from each municipality, and we only have 2 from the incorporated areas. I would like to see us have the same amount of people, whether it be 2, 3, 4, represented from the unincorporated areas as the municipalities, because the majority of this is from a road board perspective, the majority of the business of the road board is done in the rural area. I'm not saying that the municipalities doesn't need a voice, and I know those folks pay county taxes just as well. I'm just would like to see, and I know you all want to not have the too many people on this board where it gets out of the scope where it's hard to do business. I understand that, but whether it be you go with this recommendation, I would just like to see the same amount. It's just a recommendation from me. Same amount of people in the rural areas on this board as you do in municipalities. But I mean, I'm all for it. I don't know how how you are going to do as far as the selection of the road board members or school board members, but I plan on applying, so I'd like to help to see this get done or get.
I understand what she said. Your chairman, your group will select who you send. Is that right?
No, the motion was that the road board, school board, the county commissioner, and that the 2 citizens from the unincorporated areas apply to the steering committee.
Okay.
And that the members from the municipalities be appointed by their mayors.
Okay, so we could conceivably have, with the entire
All
road
7,
board
right.
could.
Yeah, everybody.
Okay,
Right.
all right.
Right. That's all I have.
Include
Mayor?
at least one member.
It's a little bit along what he just said, but when this committee convenes, I'm just trying to think what would happen. When you started this redistricting, when we had the redistricting committee, we had a whole booklet that had been prepared by the State Elections Commission office that gave some pretty fundamental parameters and guidelines as to what tools they had in their toolbox to use. And in your first sentence, Ms. Allen, you talk about some of these things: compactness, contiguity, respect for political boundaries, and shared communities of interest. Now, nothing in our motion says what we're asking this group to use as their parameters of discussion and discovery. Right now, the way we've got this structured there, it's an open-ended process, and they can convene this and they can decide what they want to do. Do you want to give them any parameters, or do you want it to be a completely open-ended discussion?
The more shackles we put on them, the harder it's going to be for them to do something.
Well, I think that's a great suggestion, because the reinforcement principles that we followed, the logic is that we should follow those for road and school board as well. Those have been tested and challenged in court, and so even though they won't be looking at the commission districts, I think you're exactly right, that needs to at least be the foundation for how they look at the road and school board. Even if they can't apply them, they need to understand them to be able to do their job here. Because there are cases where it doesn't apply exactly, but especially the one man, one vote, which is what we tried to accomplish. They need to understand that, and I think that's a great suggestion. I don't remember what that document was called.
I don't either.
The one man, one vote won't change because we're not reducing or changing.
Right, but I'm just saying from a standpoint of helping them understand, just need to lay the groundwork so that they understand how do we get where we are. They're building a house where we already laid the foundation. If they don't understand the foundation and how that was built, I'm just afraid they won't know, how to continue, what it is they need to build on. So, and that was honestly one of my concerns, that depending on who you had coming in to serve on this committee, were they going to be knowledgeable enough to really accomplish what this group's going to need to accomplish? And I think that's a great starting point for them.
But in a little bit further discussion, the one point that you made in respect for political boundaries.
Right.
We didn't do that with respect to our districts.
That's right, we didn't.
I mean, there's no respect for political boundaries, so I'm not quite sure how this group could do that. Follow what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I mean, I'm just looking at the devil's in the details, and we're gonna have to get there at some point.
Right.
Well, like I said just a few minutes ago, Mr. Chairman, Mayor, Ms. Allen, I think we need to get the election director involved, but it is election year, a very big election year. And I know she's pretty busy, but if we could hold off on this another 30 days, it's not putting this committee off. It's just saying, let's get some of these loose ends tied up here where we're all got to feel good about it. Bring it back to steering. Let's put this committee together right. Allow you to do what you want to do to better Rutherford County. That's what we're all about anyway.
Right.
It's not doing anything upsetting or anything or advantageous to any city or county resident. This is getting it better and getting it better for the next group, like you said, Commissioner Stevens. So if we can give us 30 days, committee, I think we can get some of these things, even the name of the committee, right. And I think that works. Study committee, you know, the school board and road board. And make sure the mayors are okay with this as far as being able to appoint somebody, which I'm sure they are. But the other three, and let the road board and school board throw this out there. Hey, this is being discussed on steering. You know, a couple of y'all want to go, 3 of y'all want to go, 1 of you want to go. Do we have volunteer, or we're going to have to nominate somebody, you know, to go? And because it's very important, and it would be good if we got it done before, you know, this next cycle. So, but I think our election directors definitely has to be involved with this and give this committee some guidelines, like the mayor just said, to go by, so they're not just out there in the wind kind of flying around and not knowing exactly what we got to do here and what can we do in a legal way. And it's all to make our county better. So I don't think 30 days will set anything back. I think you got the wheels rolling, and let's come back next month and be ready to go with a full vote on it. At least I'll be more prepared and feel better about it.
So what do you see as the outstanding issues that we need to have answered by next month? Just the foundation of the documents?
Well, the number of members. One, he mentioned a couple things right there.
Well, that'll ultimately be your decision, because.
Well, we started off with 5 and ended up with 11.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
You want to make sure everybody's, get that kind of hammered down, nailed down. Who knows what it'll end up, in the commission level. But anyway, not that didn't work. I mean, it worked. 11 people worked. I'm just saying you don't want to miss anybody, and I think we did last time. We missed road board and school board members. It would have been very helpful to be on that committee. So maybe we should have had 7 instead of 11. No, I don't want to say that. But anyway, that 11 worked very good. We maybe should have had 13. Lucky 13. But anyway, the name of the committee, and also getting our election director to give us some parameters on what you can do and what your goal should be.
See, I guess I'm not following that as far as that being her role in this. I'm just, because it was my impression that she didn't want to be on the last committee. She's pretty much had to be.
Yeah.
And I can absolutely see her being a resource if they have questions about timelines and election cycles and things like that. But in terms of what they can and can't do, I don't see that.
Not can and can't do. Maybe that's not the right terminology. Okay. But I'm just saying, you're not going to be able to change these district lines. So
right.
The only thing you can do is move the school board and road board lines, and to what extent can you? And how many has to be in there, and those numbers, and help from OIT as well.
Yeah, GIS will drive that. Those answers, I think.
Yeah, but I mean, you can have a goal to set, and they're going into it, and then okay, y'all make it that way, or not really a goal. Okay. Like I said, the terminology. I just don't want to have it open ended where the committee doesn't know where they're going. You got to have an end result. This is what we've got to do. This is what we're charged with. So we've got to get to here.
Right.
And so, otherwise, you're saying, okay, well, let's knock DeVerne down to 2 representatives in the school, and maybe road isn't exactly right. We're going to adjust that, but how can we, and how many, registered voters has to be in that area, and to keep that. You see what I'm saying?
No.
Give you some.
I'm trying real hard to follow, but yeah, no.
We had to do that.
Set some, like you said, parameters of what they can change and what they can't.
Yes, that's what I said. I think
there are certain things that they won't be able to.
Right. We know they can't change commission districts. Can't change commission lines.
And I think what the mayor was saying, what Commissioner Sandlin was saying, is they need to know all those things. They need a box.
They
to
won't
stay
know all
inside
of them. They won't know all of them. But I'm saying. you know, here's some guidelines for you, and here's some things to work with, and then here you go. And then y'all may come back with something, that's perfect. That's, you know, the election director says, yes, that's exactly what we're talking about. Or, no, you can't do this. You're gonna have to go back to the drawing board. You can't do that because of X, Y, Z. Okay.
If you just go with, they can, here's some of the parameters, impact this kind of group.
Right.
Continuity.
Right.
How you say that.
Continuity.
And after you define what shared communities of interest is,
Right.
those are three key parameters that you need to focus on. And going a little bit further back to what he said, you may not gonna have the same parameters that work for the school board that work for the road board.
Right.
I don't know how that's
Right.
gonna fit out, but I think you need to be objective about that in that, when you really thoughtfully think through this.
I know we have a timeline for them to report back, or
Yeah, the
make a
time-
recommendation within 6 months. Should we elaborate on that as far as, is 6 months gonna be the full time for this committee to operate under? And then we can extend it after that 6-month period? I mean, I don't wanna,
We can do anything later that we want to do with the committee. We could terminate it or extend it or fire them and appoint another committee. I mean, if they have a deadline, they're probably going to be working more diligently to meet the deadline than if it's just open-ended for the next decade. Whenever y'all get around to it, you know, in 4 years, come back. I think it'd be good so they have a timeline to be watching.
That's my thing. I think they'll have, if they have a more aggressive meeting schedule, if they know that there's a due date.
I think,
should they meet monthly for 6 months?
I think they'll decide their meeting schedule, because they may want
Yeah,
to
they-
meet every 2 weeks.
Or what if they don't
Yeah.
decide to have an aggressive meeting schedule?
Well, if they know they've got to have a recommendation in 6 months, that's the goal, is that, you know, then they will.
Well, you're saying 6
Yeah.
months from when they start, so,
From
I mean,
their-
it could
their
be
first meeting
September,
date.
October, no,
Right.
whatever, whenever they start, so I
Right.
mean, yeah.
that should be plenty of time to hash out these issues. I
Because
would
especially,
think.
trust me, as, you know, as volunteers, when you get into this level of minutia, this level of detail, by the time you've educated yourself, you're ready to start problem solving and making some solutions and moving on with it. If we appoint the right people, that'll be the result. Okay, so what I've heard is on the number of members, I think that will evolve based on whatever steering decides, and then however the county commission as a whole wants to tweak it, because we like to tweak things. The name of the committee, I'm perfectly fine letting it be the Study Committee for Road and School Board Zones, if somebody wants to make a better suggestion. And then, Mayor, I liked what you said about they need a foundation document, and so we just need to find the name of what that document was, so that they can at least educate themselves about the redistricting principles. Even though they won't be doing redistricting, they need to understand the principles of redistricting, because that was the foundation of what we had. And then, that's all I had, so.
Can we just ask that the election administrator come to the first meeting and go over those things with them instead of adopting, you need to follow these standards, we want this done? Because when you start putting guidelines and restrictions on them, they're gonna have fewer options. And especially if incumbency is one of the things on that list, we don't know who's gonna be an incumbent in 2016.
I'm just saying you need to include the election director to give you some guidance, direction into your goal.
Can we just?
That's all I'm saying.
So she would be a resource like
I
OIT
think, I
and the
think she
county.
can get you that. I'm not
Yeah.
speaking for her,
Yeah.
because it's election year, and I know
Right.
she's tremendously busy in her department, but I mean.
Or it could be
I
her
think-
designee.
I think she can give you that. And,
Yeah.
I mean, you got a motion and a second on the floor. This right here may go ahead as it is. I'm just saying, to be better prepared and a role for that committee and be able to set that committee, you need to get her involved.
Well, I'll amend my motion to include her as an advisory person too, because we included the OIT and the county attorney. Would you amend your second?
Second's fine.
Because I don't think she wants to be a voting member of that committee, because if you have to vote on one map plan or another, you know, you get into a situation where is she being impartial, or is she favoring this person or that district over this one? I think she would prefer to stay neutral, but if we could ask her to come to the meetings, or at least some of them with some rules and things that have to be done, but really, the only thing that they have to follow is they can't change the commission districts, and they have to group 3 together. I mean, they can make any combination of districts they want to, but if she tells them we want them to be
But they do need to
compact-
understand the redistricting principles.
Right, the compactness and the contiguity and the common areas and so forth. I don't see how incumbency can be one if we're planning for 6 years from now. So,
We have a motion and a second, but we also have, I think, a request to kind of hold off and bring it back next month. Is that what I was hearing? Or are we gonna go ahead and vote on this?
the
Without-
issues, the name and the, what
Number
was
of
the first
members.
one? The
Number of members, the name of the group, the foundation document, just for the educational purposes, the redistricting document that our group started with, and then include the election administrator in an advisory role.
It seems like those last two were just addressed if we request that she come to the first meeting and go over with them what they are supposed to be doing.
I think you ought to keep her available on the advisory role through the whole
Well,
process.
right, sure, but she needs certainly to see the first one and tell them how we got where we are and what they
County
can do.
employee, she will have to make herself available when she can, as needed.
Yeah.
Or just like with the county attorney, if she has to send a designee, or I don't know what the hierarchy is over there, but she may have someone that can be available if she can't be.
So where do we go with this a week from Thursday night? Do we start informing it?
Well, I guess that's what I'm asking. I thought we were gonna hold off another 30 days.
And I'm
bring it
not
back
arguing that we
up.
should or shouldn't, I'm just,
Yeah.
if we're gonna have to vote on this motion, or he's gonna have to withdraw it, I'm not gonna withdraw my second. But if he wants to withdraw it, that's fine. But, or somebody can amend it if they want to. I just want, we're gonna have to tell the county commission something.
Right.
A week from Thursday. And I guess we can,
If we send them
we
this,
can
they
tell
can
them our committee and our recommendation for a committee, and then they won't
to change it, they can.
tweak.
I'd amend the motion then that we bring it back in 30 days to our next, well, amend that we bring it back to our next steering committee meeting with the questions to some of the things that we brought up here tonight. So we make a more detailed, accurate decision on how we're gonna do it and then go forward.
Second.
Amendment and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No,
Amendment passes.
should I call for a roll call vote? Have a quick-
For
can
that-
we
for
have
the
a
amendment?
roll call vote on the amendment?
We only had one, now it was you.
Question about the motion. What'd you say? Roll
I was
call
just
vote.
telling the
You want a
commission,
roll call vote
we
on the
had
amendment?
one. and that
I
was-
didn't hear a vote.
Okay. Ms. Becky, would you call the roll on the?
Would you read it, again, please, Becky, for the slower
The
members of the
amendment.
committee,
This is just a delay of 30 days.
namely me?
Your amendment is amend the original motion to defer to next meeting, to the next meeting, to defer the issue to the next meeting.
Put it off 30 days. Is that's the amendment? All right.
Next steering meeting.
Please call the roll, please.
Commissioner Black,
Yes.
Commissioner Gooch,
Yes.
Commissioner Jordan,
Yes.
Commissioner Sandlin,
Aye.
Commissioner Stevens,
No.
Commissioner Coggin.
Yes. 5 yes, 1 no. Amendment passes.
This ain't
We will defer this then
Getting it in
until
on
the
us.
next, our March
Who needs to do
steering
what
committee
work?
meeting.
For the next, okay. I just want to be clear on what it is you need me to bring back. Because I think we have everything answered already, but, so I just want to be clear what it is exactly you need me to do in 30 days. What are we doing at the next steering committee meeting?
What we just mentioned and getting with the
What-
election director.
Number of
give you some
members, I'm
guidance.
not changing my recommendation. Name of the committee, I gave you a name. The foundation documents, the redistricting, and I'll get you the name of that. And then the election administrator being in an advisory role in OIT, that's in the county attorney's office. That'll happen with the group.
She
So I'm
can-
just not sure what else I need to do. What do you need from me in 30 days?
The election director needs to give you some guidelines into that, helping you with this study committee into reaching your goal of getting accomplished what you're wanting to get accomplished. Sit down with her,
Okay.
talk with her, she'll give you some stuff. And you can bring that back as well as everything else then, and we'll be ready to go.
Is Ms. Shelton had some questions about their original motion.
Just as to your language as to the election administrator, do you want it to read, a representative from Rutherford County OIT staff for GIS purposes and the county attorney's office will attend the meetings and work sessions to serve as resources for this committee, with the election administrator to attend in an advisory position the first meeting and subsequent thereto?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay,
Sounds good.
thank you.
She's good that way.
Very
So you're
well.
voting on that motion? Have you voted on that one yet?
We're deferred to
You
next
defer,
month.
okay,
We referred to the next
Okay.
motion.
okay.
Very well. Any other business? Any other business? Commissioner George?
Mr. Chairman, just to mention, and we go wherever the committee wants to go, I'm not a bitter man at all, as you all know.
You're a lovely man.
Thank you so much. The deadline for applying for applications is something, appointments, is something I think we need to at least discuss at some point. I'm not suggesting such a discussion take place tonight. Also, I have talked with the mayor a little bit about this, and he can talk whenever he wants to. But well, I'll ask him. There is. You've been unable to find any, and so have I, by the way, any mention that this is a firm rule, the deadline. It's not. It's something we've tried to follow and have most of the time. Whatever. Is that correct or?
It is correct that I've been unable to find, certainly it's not in our commissioner's handbook.
Right.
That there's a deadline. And secondly, based on a bit of research from staff, we can't find that the full commission has ever adopted such a policy.
Okay. And to carry that one step further, if, forget this thing that happened tonight, okay? I'm not really referring to that now. I'm trying to make sure it doesn't happen again. All right? Whether we have a deadline or not, just so everybody understands what the rules are. Now, we had people apply, that's wrong. We had people call Ms. Taylor and ask her after the deadline. And she said, very wise woman, Ms. Taylor, she said, it's after the deadline, which it was. She didn't say you couldn't apply. She said it's after the deadline. Well, I don't know how many of those people there were. They thought it was too late. When you have a deadline, hey, I think it's pretty much too late. So, well, evidently, clearly, it's not. Deadline doesn't mean deadline. Okay, I'm all right. Okay, but now we need to address that. I got off track there. We need to go to the county commission and see who can be nominated from the floor. Does a person have to have filled out an application or not? The answer to that, according to the mayor and the county attorney, is we don't know. Is that right? We don't know whether they have to fill out an application or not.
If there's no binding resolution by the Board of Commissioners, if a person makes a nomination from the floor, I'll have to accept it.
So there you are. So we can nominate anyone at any time for any commission, any appointment if we so choose, whether they filled out an application or not. Now, my opinion, which clearly doesn't matter, my opinion is that if the person did not think enough to fill out an application a week ago, and a number of other people did, then those should be the people that should be allowed. We should be allowed to nominate them from the floor if they want and we so choose. But all I'm really saying here is that we need to get that in writing with a formal, something that we're going to enforce. It would be ironic, not a bitter man at all, but it would be ironic if we adopted the 1 week policy and we just violated it tonight. But still, that may be the correct way to go with this. So a week sounds fine to me. And one other point, and then you all discuss or adjourn or whatever you want to do. We have put Ms. Taylor and the other staff in the office who do, as we all know, tremendous job for us. we've put her particularly, but the other two secretaries too, in a difficult position because she has now got to tell the person something if they ask. And it says so right there, and she's got to answer that in some way. Does she accept it or not? You see, and we put her in a difficult position, and I'd like to relieve her of that duty. And she can either, if it's after the deadline, she can say, I cannot accept it because the steering committee will not consider it. Or the opposite, there is no deadline.
Well, I think you've made a good point. I would like to ask, what does a week mean? Because all applicants came in a week prior or the week prior to us meeting. So nothing came in today. Nothing came in Sunday or Saturday. I'm looking at my calendar in case you want to know what I'm looking at. And then I'm looking at these application or the applicants on here. So we got one last week, and the one we got last week called actually the day before Mr. Jones resigned, and said if they so resigned, then he was going to throw his hat in for this position. And then the day that it hit the paper that Mr. Jones resigned, my phone started ringing. And matter of fact, a lot of other people called that didn't even turn in applications, period, that I thought was going to turn in applications. But we didn't have any. So until you mentioned the date, so to speak, I mean, I ain't even looked at the date when they were, down here at the bottom, what the date was, until you started saying something in the middle of the meeting. Because we received them all a week prior. I'm saying a week. It was 6 days. So a week prior. It was the week prior to our meeting. So, I would say if we got something today, then it wouldn't. But that does need to be clarified. I believe you're correct on that. As far as is a week 7 days, or is a week before we meet? I think that does need to be clarified or cleared up, or so we don't put, like you said, our staff in a situation down here, and say if they got an application today. If they did, what I'm saying, they didn't, I don't reckon, but we didn't get it if they did. But what I'm saying is, if they did, would it have been a responsibility for them to go ahead and accept that application, give it to us, even though we've gotten it today? And I think we've done that prior if we didn't have any other applicants, for something.
We would take that application and date stamp it exactly what we did on these.
All right.
And see if it was 7 days prior to this meeting or not.
Right.
Commissioner Sandlin, I had phone calls too.
Yes, sir.
And I was surprised that we didn't have 8 or 9 applications by the people that call me.
Right. I agree.
We did have an application on February 1st, and today is February 6th. So that application is late, 2 days late. It's stamped that way. Now, I don't go over all this again. I mean, we've done this, and that's fine. But if somebody meets Commissioner Coggin coming up the steps on meeting night and hands him an application, that's just as good as February 1st. 6 days or 5 days or 4 or 3, I don't care. If we have a week, it's a week. If we don't have a week, then it's whatever we say it is. And really, although I kind of like we do have a rule. Well, no, we don't have a rule because we can't possibly follow it. Normally, we get these applications when Mrs. Taylor sends out the agenda. Isn't that correct? We get the ones that she has received up to that point, which usually comes a week ahead of time. I got them at the same time this time, which I believe, I'm not sure what day I got it, but it was maybe perhaps Wednesday Tuesday or Wednesday. I've got everything all together. I do think it's changed a little bit in that she used to have to mail everything. So she's making sure. I think that's why the original week was done, and I believe she thinks that too. But she also told me that she had no idea particularly why, and you know, this was just kind of the way it allowed her to advertise, and it allowed her to mail us things that it took a couple of days to get to us. Well, now it's electronic, so we get it. So maybe we don't need a week. Maybe we need 3 days or 4 days to look them over. I don't know. I'm just suggesting that that's something that I'd like to see addressed at some point. And also how the county commission is going to handle it if we want to accept nominations from anybody, that's okay, or if we want to accept nominations only from people who applied and within the deadline.
I'd like to make a motion that we include both of those items on our next steering agenda meeting.
Second.
Would it be okay with making a motion in a second if we put that off till April and ask the county attorney to maybe research and give them time to make sure that there's nothing out there? I've talked to the county attorney, I think the mayor has, and to his knowledge there's not, but maybe he can also, maybe through reading these minutes, he might be able to see some sort of our issues, and maybe they can draft even a possible solution to those and give him some time to bring those back to us.
That's fine.
That's fine.
That's
I will-
Okay.
I withdraw
So for
my second.
April-
I withdraw my second.
Or we can just plan on putting it on the agenda
That's
for
fine.
April.
Okay.
That's okay.
That'd be great.
When you
But-
say include both items, what do you mean by both items? Should the week deadline?
The deadline and then who can be nominated.
And then what can you do on the commission floor?
Okay.
Yeah, if you can accept a nomination without an application.
Okay.
Thank you. I appreciate being heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. It's definitely a very valid concern.
Now, he withdrew his second. Do we still have a motion?
No, he withdrew his motion, so
Okay, so this is just a,
a request for the county attorney to look into that. Would be okay. Do we need a motion?
no, so you're not putting it on the April agenda?
Yes.
Or are you?
Yes,
Okay,
ma'am.
I'll tell Ms. Taylor it goes on the
Is that
April agenda. Okay. With advice from the county attorney at the April meeting.
Any other business? All right, move to adjourn?
So move.